Hello everyone and welcome back. Jeb Smith here. So chances are over the last couple of months, if you've been paying attention to the media and or watching YouTube, you're seeing a lot of celebrities move out of the state of California to areas like Nevada, Arizona, Idaho, Texas, Florida, North Carolina, all of these different parts. In fact, in a normal year as a real estate agent, I usually have somewhere between 2 to 5 clients move out of state. But over the last 18 months, I've seen a huge increase in the number of people leaving the state of California. In fact, 3 of my last 4 listings, clients are leaving the state of California. And talking to them about why they're leaving, it's a multitude of reasons. It goes everything from cost of living to taxes to politics. There's a lot involved in that process. So what I want to talk about today is some things you should consider if you're moving out of state. Now, I have clients that have moved out of state and been completely happy. In fact, a lot of them have. But at the same time, I've had clients move out of state and completely regretted making that decision for one reason or another. Because a lot of people think that the grass is always greener with different things, whether it be property taxes being less or the cost of living being less. And so what I want to talk about in today's video is some things that you should consider if you're moving out of the state of California. And now you may be thinking of moving out of a different state to another state. And again, these are things that you should keep in mind, but more so the people that are leaving California. I'm fortunate enough to have lived in another state. In fact, I lived in North Carolina. That's where my entire life I was raised until I was 22 years old and came to Southern California. That was 18 years ago. And so I'm going to talk about a lot of things that I've personally experienced living out of state, but we're also going to talk about some things that are, more in the headlines today and things that you need to consider if you're planning on making that move. Now, I ask a favor, if you like content like this, you find this video helpful, do me a favor and give me a thumbs up. So the first thing I want to talk about in today's video is taxes. This seems to be the most popular reason outside of politics, probably kind of a balance between the two, which is more the reason that people are leaving the state. But people are leaving because they feel like California affordability has just gotten out of control, that state income taxes are way too high. The cost of living, properties are just way too high. And so they're considering moving out of state. And they're considering areas like Texas, whether it be Austin or Dallas, areas like Arizona, Phoenix, or Las Vegas, or what have you. And what people don't take into account are some of those things that we're going to address today. Now, California has a high state income tax, the highest in the nation. And people moving to Texas, where there is no state income tax, automatically think that by moving to Texas, it's going to be less expensive. But what people don't understand is that while you get more property, more bang for your buck with regards to the size of the property that you can afford in a state like Texas, in a lot of cases, not always, but typically, if you own a $750,000 home here, you're able to take that home and buy something less expensive in a state like Texas or Arizona or Nevada or what have you, and get more house for less money. But states like Texas, for example, which is where the majority of Californians leaving are going, their property taxes are range somewhere between 2 and 3%. And people don't understand that. And they think, well, yeah, but the price of my property is less. So, and I'm not paying any state income tax, so I can afford to pay some more on property tax. Okay, but understand that property tax amount isn't a fixed amount. Here in California, we have Prop 13, which essentially fixes your taxes based off when you purchase the property. There are limits on how much property taxes can increase per year. With that Prop 13, states like Texas and some of these other states don't necessarily have those limits. So, you have to consider the fact that by moving there, not only are your property taxes likely going to be 2 to 3 times the amount they are here in California, but your wages may actually be less, right? In the state of California, what you earn here is probably going to be more than what you would earn in a different state, because the cost, because a lot of times incomes in most cases are based off the cost of living in an area. So in California, wages are higher than they are in some of these other areas. So not only are you moving, maybe taking less income, and your property tax is going up, but you also have to consider that those aren't fixed costs and that they're going to continue to increase over time. Now, while we're on the topic of cost, things like property taxes, let's also consider something else that a lot of people don't take into account, and that is the cost of utilities when moving out of the state of California. Now, Southern California, where I'm located, we have a very moderate climate, if you will. You don't use your heater a lot. You don't use your air conditioning a lot. Now, there are times of the year where you use them more often than others, but for the most part, we don't use them. Because when I lived in North Carolina, you either ran the heater most of the year or you ran the air conditioning most of the year, and there wasn't this time where neither were running. Where in the state of California, I might run my air conditioning and my heater maybe a total of maybe 2 months out of the year. So for the most part, I can just open my windows. I have a great climate. So you have to consider when moving to states like Texas, Arizona, Idaho, your utility bills are likely going to be significantly more than they are here in Southern California. And I'm not meaning to pick on these states, because it's not that at all. It's where people are moving, and so I want to talk about these different areas. So in states like Texas, you have 4 seasons. States like Arizona, maybe not the 4 seasons so much, but it does get a lot hotter, so you're going to run that air conditioning a lot more. So chances are your utility bills are also going to be more expensive than California. So everybody is thinking, hey, affordability, I can leave California, sell my house, go buy something in another state, and it's going to be less expensive. But once you start factoring in property taxes being way more, and the fact that your utilities are likely way more, the cost savings isn't really what you might think it would be. And those things can increase over time, right? They're not fixed costs. So it's going to get more expensive as time goes on. Now, here's something that is primarily the reason that I'm still in California, and that's the weather, right? The one thing we have is weather here in Southern California. Today, it's probably 65 degrees outside, and it's snowing in a large majority of the country at the moment. It's freezing cold in areas. And so, by moving to these other states, people aren't used to the humidity. They're not used to the freezing cold. And while, it doesn't seem like a big deal, hey, look, I'm just going to go and my body will adjust to it. Yeah, it will adjust to it. But what I can tell you, coming from the other direction, being in a state like North Carolina, where it was super humid growing up, over 100% humidity during summers, coming to a place like this, I'm never going back to that. It is miserable. You sweat, you get out of the shower and immediately sweating. It's not any fun. And the same could be said for the cold. I like going to ski. I like going to snowboard, going to the mountains and hanging out, but I don't want to live there. I don't want to wear a jacket, a coat, and a beanie and a scarf every single day when I walk outside during the winter. I want to wear shorts. I can wear shorts pretty much any day here in California and just have a long sleeve shirt on and be completely fine. So weather is one of those things that I think a lot of people tread lightly, because they're like, hey, it's not really that big of a deal. It's going to be a little bit colder. It's going to be a little bit hotter, but overall, it's not really something that I'm too worried about. Well, maybe you should be, because I see a lot of people moving to these states and complaining because of how hot or how cold or what have you. Another thing, California, where we live here in Southern California, I'm at the moment maybe half a mile to the beach. I'm 2 hours from the mountains to go skiing. We have things like, attractions, Disneyland, Six Flags, mountains to go hiking. I mean, everything, right? I mean, we have activities here. Some of these states that you move to, you don't have those activities, right? You might have the ability to go to a museum or to go somewhere. You might have to drive 4 or 5 hours to go to the beach, or take a plane to go skiing. And again, maybe not a big deal, but things that you have to consider. California offers an abundance of activities for you to do, without having to pay a lot of money to do them. You don't have to pay for flights. Maybe you have to pay for a hotel if you don't want to drive home, but you're within a very, very short distance of a lot of things to do and things that, a lot of people come to California for vacation, right? And because it's a great place to vacation, you don't really take vacations to a lot of these other cities that people are moving. Yeah, they're cool to visit for a couple of days, but outside of a couple of days, there's not really a lot to do. So you have to take that into account. And lastly, the thing that I'm going to throw out there, and it's going to sound crazy, is bugs, right? I mean, here in Southern California, we don't have bugs. We have mosquitoes occasionally, but areas like North Carolina, where I grew up, Texas, some of these areas that are super hot and humid, you got bugs, you got mosquitoes, you got flies, and it's not something that I even think about anymore because we don't really have them here in California, at least in Southern California where I am. But when I go home to North Carolina and hang out and, we're out during the summer or what have you, it sucks. I mean, it's miserable. And this sounds like, Jeb, you're a wuss. Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe I've become one. I grew up as a country boy playing out in fields and on farms and what have you, and this was never a problem. But now that I'm an adult and I've experienced life without them, quite frankly, don't want to go back. And I see people posting stuff all the time on social media like, hey, look, we moved to Texas and, the bugs are as big as my dog and what have you. So just understand that, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Factor in these things, right? Going to visit one time, during a weekend or what have you, maybe you caught the best weather of the year. You need to do it more than once. And in some cases, maybe not selling your property in California and just going to rent somewhere for a year is a better thing to consider, because once you sell in California, it's going to be very, very difficult to come back, especially when you pay less money for a house, in most cases out of state, and get more property. If you decide to sell that property and want to come back to California, it's going to be price shock. And I think that's something that most people don't consider. They just pick up, they sell, and move out of state. And when in theory, what they should probably do is just rent their house out for maybe a year, rent somewhere out of state, figure out if they even like it. So that way they leave themselves a safety net to come back. Because otherwise, once you sell here, it's very, very difficult to make that move back to California. I see it all the time with clients that are coming back here. They have a hard time spending the money to get what they want because of what they had in these other states. So, and there are other things that I'm not talking about in this video, like politics and that sort of thing, that take people out of state. But also understand that not all states are what you think they are, right? A lot of people are leaving California because of the Democratic majority in the state, and I get it, right? Any majority leading anything isn't going to be good, and in this case, it's not for various reasons. But there are, just because you move to a state like Texas or Arizona or what have you, it might not be exactly what you think it is, right? There are a lot of people that have left California for various reasons, and so that doesn't mean that everybody that's left has the same agenda or thought on politics as you do. So, just understand that, some of these areas that you may be considering moving might not be one way or the other as much as you think. So, but that's a whole different conversation and not really something that I want to dive into here. But what I'm telling you with this video is just make sure you're doing your due diligence if you're considering moving out of state. Don't just, make rash decisions, because this is something that is going to impact you, right? You have to enjoy where you live. Otherwise, it's not going to be any fun. So, but I'd love to see your comments. Those of you who have moved out of state, what do you think? Are you still loving it? Are there things that you didn't consider that you should have? What am I missing in this video with regards to people moving out of California? Are there things that I should have thrown in on those tips that, these people out of state aren't considering? Let me know in the comments below. But for now, I appreciate you taking the time to watch. Appreciate the support. Hope to see you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.